So we are live now and formally starting our session today. Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. I'm Anam Kamran, welcoming you all to this insightful webinar. And we are going to have an interesting discussion around the e-commerce industry in Pakistan. We have seen a lot of, trends changing in past few years. Like people started opting for online shopping when pandemic hit the country, and now they are going back towards the physical shopping. But abhi situation kya hai? Are we really going to hit the $1 billion industry in Pakistan or not? How trends are changing currently, how SMEs can, make a part of it. Ye cheezein aur bahut sara aur discussion we are expecting in this webinar because we have some industry experts with us. Let's welcome Adam Daud. He is the founder of bSecure. We have Ms. Nida Siddiqui. She is heading the e-commerce department at Al-Karam. And we have Imtiaz Noor. He's the founder of Orange Fox. So I'll ask all three of you to please introduce yourself a bit and what you have been doing in the e-commerce industry. आप लोग कब से e-commerce में काम कर रहे हैं? अभी तक क्या किस dimensions में, किन departments में या किन companies के साथ आपने e-commerce industry में काम किया है? So over to you, Adam, then Nida, then Imtiaz, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Anam. So I've been in the e-commerce industry just over 10 years now within Pakistan. I started in Daraz. So I came in in May 2012 and I started looking after their production team. So, all the photography and everything. I then moved into product management. From Daraz, I started a few of my own e-commerce companies, betpeople.pk and so on. And then I moved to Kemu, where I was looking after day-to-day operations. And in 2016, I moved to Yevo. I was in Yevo for just shy of 4 years. And in 2020, I started bSecure, which is a one-click sort of checkout solution to help e-commerce companies increase their conversion rate.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. Nida, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Nida Siddiqui. I've actually been in the e-commerce industry for about 7 years now. I actually started my e-commerce journey through Yevo, and I was actually working under Adam's leadership there. I was part of the vendor management department. From there, I actually, because I explored the marketplace sites, I wanted to move on to the brand side. So I joined Banana Consultancy. I was there for about 5 years, more or less, from setting up their operations to setting up 2 different platform websites to basically running the e-commerce business at Bonanza. So to finally here at Al-Karam now. So this has been my journey.
Thank you, Nida. Thank you for joining us. Imtiaz.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I have about 22 years of working under my belt. E-commerce and well, I joined e-commerce formally in Pakistan, I guess, in 2015 with Adam. But usse pehle I've been on the analytics side, so I've always been a measurement and analytics person. 2015, I joined Kemu, which with Adam, and then on I've been more associated with the e-commerce and startup industry. And after that, I joined MCBRF Habib. I digitized their operations business, their investment management business entirely from end to end. Uske baad, I set up my own company, Orange Fox. It's been a great 4-ish years in this process. We work with a range of startups and established e-commerce companies providing marketing technology and consulting on how to improve measurement and conversions. Thank you.
Thank you, Imtiaz. So you guys must know कि हमारे पास आज कौन industry experts हैं. To start the session, I would request Adam, because from the very beginning, जब से मैंने भी e-commerce industry join की, one thing जो मुझे Adam की बहुत ज़्यादा inspire करती है, he is very, very much into research and numbers और बहुत सारी चीजें. जब e-commerce industry पाकिस्तान में boom होनी शुरू हुई थी, जब से ही Adam is very much into this. So currently, क्या situation है e-commerce industry की, and what we are looking in the next coming, months or maybe years. I would request Adam to please share his insights about the e-commerce industry in Pakistan.
Sure. So I'm going to ask Mavish to share this because as it so happens, my browser stopped working just as I was supposed to start sharing the screen. So Mavish is going to start sharing, but I'll sort of walk everyone through the numbers. All of these presentations, numbers, everything, they're also available on the QR code that you sort of see over here. So you'll be able to go through the data and everything yourself. In terms of the core data set that we've taken, it comes from the State Bank of Pakistan. And I just sort of try and extrapolate on that where possible. Next slide, please. So first, we'll basically start looking at the core sort of e-commerce numbers. In the funding side. So in terms of funding, so the last 2 years have been very, very strong in terms of the VC money that's sort of been coming into Pakistan. We saw $223 million in VC capital come in just this year alone, with 5 startups bringing in over 20 million each, Bazaar being the largest one. However, that there has been a sort of a very noticeable slowdown in the last 6 months or so. But I think this is something that over the next sort of 6 months or so will easily start to taper off again, and we'll start potentially coming into the bull market. Next, please. So there we go. Sorry. In terms of the actual order and value growth, so on a
I think Adam's internet is a bit down. He'll join us in a few minutes. Meanwhile, we all can, look up to this slide where he's sharing about the prepayment growth graph in Pakistan.
Okay, these numbers seem quite interesting. If you look at the last 2 quarters, we see that we have a great number of increase in the number of orders. Nida, what trend have you seen in the last couple of months, I would say, because I feel that overall e-commerce numbers went down in the last 6-8 months. I think, was it economic recession? I don't know what it was, but maybe you can comment on that.
See, past 6-8 months have actually been difficult for the entire nation, not just the e-com numbers, but I think also it translated somewhere in the retail as well, because with the whole regimen change and the recession rate that just went on high, we also observed a dip in numbers. So, for instance, a store would do, let's say, 2,000 orders a day. They actually went down significantly by 50%, and then they were just doing about 1,000 orders a day. So that is the trend that all e-commerce stores, and I'm just not talking about brands, I'm talking about marketers as well, they have observed. And it has to do with the inflation rate, the fact that the dollar rate kept fluctuating, the fact that the petrol prices went all high. So there has been, I think, in July and August, we saw the most huge change in the fuel prices, and that's when actually it really hit us, because back in June, July, and August, these 3 were actually the months where we felt the most hit. So we could see the numbers declining. We could see every brand offering all sort of bargains, but the inclination towards shopping online or maybe going to a brick and mortar store had massively reduced. But if you talk about, I'm stepping ahead, but I'm just going to actually add something that's actually like a like a good hope for all of us, is that since August, late August, September and October, we have seen the trend changing now slowly and gradually. The sale is picking up again. And October is usually slow for all e-com stores because November is when you anticipate Black Friday, you anticipate 11/11. But October also has been better than what was happening in June, July, and the first half of August. So that has been the trend on the e-commerce side for the retail brand.
That's interesting, Nida. Adam is back with us. Adam, can you please continue?
Yes, of course. Sorry about that. So if we sort of look at the charts, you can see that as soon as sort of coronavirus started coming in, we saw a massive sort of spike in the overall e-commerce numbers. But, the macroeconomic situation as it's been, you can see in Q1, there was a major dip that sort of came through. Usually there's a very small seasonal dip after Q4 anyway, but this is much larger than expected. And, from our own sort of internal experience and everything, we saw after about April, May, there was a sort of major dip in orders that was coming. But as Nida very correctly pointed out, what we're also seeing right now is that has started to pick up over the last sort of 2 to 3 months, and we're hoping this month, November, especially with the Black Friday sales and everything, there'll be a major sort of increase as well coming in. The other slide, we're looking at average order value. So this is something that's sort of fairly consistent across sort of other geographies as well. Okay, as the sort of orders grow, and again, we're only really looking at prepayment data over here. We're not sort of looking at cash on delivery right now because that data is not available. But order volumes are growing, you can see that there's more orders are coming in. Obviously, it's hard to maintain a very high AOV. However, in the last quarter, there's been a noticeable sort of jump. So major transactions are still sort of going through, but the smaller ones have started to fall. Next slide, please. And then one of the very good things, though, that's happening right now is, so I just did a count recently. We now have 21 payment gateways that are available for merchants to use. So this includes the banks, the EMIs, the PSO, PSPs, and the sort of aggregators and super merchants that are there, and 4 BNPL gateways that are active. And because of all this sort of change, especially in the last sort of 2 years, you can see a massive growth in the number of sort of merchants who are now at least sort of registered with the prepayment gateways, the internet payment gateways, and so on. Whether they're all active or not is another question, but the registrations have definitely seen a major spike. So we have over 4,400 merchants registered right now. Next, please. Another sort of interesting number to note and is looking at prepayments across e-commerce versus the point of sale side, the retail side. I'm trying to get sort of numbers from before the pandemic sort of started, so 2019 and earlier. But we can see that right now, about 10 to 12% of orders, all sort of prepayment orders in the retail space come from the e-commerce sector. There was a slight sort of dip in the last quarter, but this number, I think, has grown quite a lot if we compare it to pre-corona anyway. Next slide, please.
Just give me 1 second. It's not moving forward.
I think that's probably the last slide
then.
then. That's the last slide. So, yeah, so I think with the key question being, so is the e-commerce sort of space in a major sort of recession right now? And so if we look at the basic numbers that the State Bank provides, there has been a major sort of drop. And on my personal experience as well, I can say the last few months have been sort of very difficult for all the players in the industry. But I'd love to sort of hear Imtiaz and Nida, your views as well.
Yeah, I think Nida already has something to share.
Okay, so while we're at this, and we were looking at the slide of average order value for prepayment, What's interesting, and I would love to add here something, is that back in 2015, 16, and 17, usually in e-commerce industry, the boom lied with the marketplaces, that Daraz, Gego, Kemu, and all that. And back then, I don't know if everybody would agree with me, but the trend used to be primarily mobile phones and electronics that would sell the most. And I remember having a conversation back at Gego that selling fashion was actually the most difficult back in the marketplace. And actually that sort of stands true for most marketplaces even now, because of the deals that we get at the marketplaces. So usually the prepayment would be done through card for these electronics, because you would get some bank discount or some other discount or something along those lines. But over the years, we have noticed that since prepayment has translated onto the brand side as well, I'm talking about retail fashion brands, and every retail fashion brand has its own website, e-commerce running for it now, and we do offer internet payment gateways. So what we have noticed that the average order value has declined, because average order value for a brand is ideally 3,500, 4,500, and now maybe 2,500 for a 3-piece unstitched suit. And not only that, but we have seen a boom of, primarily since 2021 and 2022, we've seen a boom of these Q-commerce companies like Foodpanda, Crave Mart, just to name a few. So people are now actually sitting at the convenience of their home, tapping on and using their credit card and ordering through those. So I think average order value, in my opinion, might just fall down further by next year, because how much these Q-commerce players have penetrated into the market. So I think the entire thing is actually changing now. The entire diaspora is actually changing. I just wanted to add that.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, Nida. And because you are already speaking about the prepayment part, I have a question in my mind. Like, if I talk about my own marketplace, buyon.pk, we have around 80+ percentage of the orders coming in on cash on delivery. We still have very low number of prepayments, maybe because we have a different market segment. Most of them are tier 2 and tier 3 cities and towns where they don't have banking system in place and all. So I'm talking about marketplace. So coming to you, being someone working at Bonanza or Alkaram now, ये एक e-store है. It's not a marketplace. What trends have you seen at such brand stores? What people are actually opting for? Are they going towards the prepayment or still opting for cash on delivery most of the time?
See, to be very honest and fair, essentially the retail business that is on the brand side relies on COD. So I think 80-85% of the business, and up until COVID, before COVID, it was 90% of the business that used to be through COD channel only. But ever since COVID has passed, we've seen an increase in the card orders as well, and we've seen that it has increased to 10 to 12 to maybe even 15%. So I think that's a good jump, and I think people are slowly and gradually opting towards prepayment, and I think that is one way of payment that will actually increase. In fact, not only just payment through cards, but also IBFT, that has also increased. अब वो that is a different concept altogether कि वो थोड़ा brand side पे उसका recon करना और manage करना थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है. तो बहुत सारे brands ऐसे हैं जिन्हें IBFT start किया और फिर उसे बंद कर दिया because recon करना बहुत मुश्किल हो रहा था. So that was an operational issue on our side. But I think business has definitely increased on prepaid orders, and I think it will continue to grow because, like I mentioned earlier, जिस तरह से Q-commerce penetrate कर रहा है, so I think this will definitely grow in future.
Yeah, I also have observed this trend that Q-commerce people are not that much reluctant to use their cards. Like I myself use cards very easily on Foodpanda. लेकिन मैं अगर किसी और प्लेटफॉर्म पे शॉपिंग करने जाऊं तो I would opt for cash on delivery, and that's what I have observed with some kind of questionnaires which we have thrown in the market. People have opted same, like they are easily using their cards for Foodpanda only, maybe because of Q-commerce, and they are using cash on delivery otherwise. Imtiaz, you have been consulting a lot of companies and e-commerce businesses.
So,
what trend you have observed? Adam, you have something to say?
no, it's okay. I'll come in after Imtiaz.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I'll echo what Nida just said and what also summarized in the presentation shared by Adam. We do see an increase in digitized transactions, and there's two fundamental drivers behind it. One, we must look into the fact that cash is aggressively being disencouraged by the government on the state bank and policy level. So they're aggressively pushing for non-cash transactions. The second thing is, to be very honest, I think people have started to become comfortable with card payments. And as you mentioned, you're more comfortable with Foodpanda and stuff like that as well. Even myself, Kareem, Foodpanda, these kind of platforms, I have my card stored on it because you use them in such a regular way. We must also differentiate the fact that these are utilities and not on-demand products. So the moment you order from Foodpanda or Kareem, you are treating those platforms as the utilities. We cannot, sure, they're e-commerce, but technically they're platforms. So I see them as utilities, right? They're the people that save you time and money from going out and buying something, and then your frequency is higher. So because you have an active frequency, it's more comfortable for you to load your card and get done with it. The more interesting thing is that when it comes to websites, people are less comfortable in general storing their card details on websites compared to apps, because the app is in their hand, it's locked by their fingerprint or code or whatever. Somehow people don't have that same level of trust with a laptop, which also goes to the repair wala, which has a Windows control code only. The controls are much more restricted. Then laptops are shared across homes, right? Laptops, desktops, these are shared devices across many homes. Phones tend to be less shared. So I think these are psychological drivers which restrict the adoption of people storing cards on online stores. However, for businesses that run via apps, their probability is slightly higher for them to be able to store a card. And this is noticed even on e-commerce stores in other countries even. So even in Pakistan, if I were to launch a marketplace, I'm somewhat, well, I'm not going to say take a name, but there are marketplaces in Pakistan who have apps, and I don't store my card there because I don't use it frequently. If my transaction frequency increases, I would like to take that opportunity to be more efficient with my transactions, which is why I would put a card. So I think that's there's two functions. One, security, two, convenience. These both of them will go into hand in hand. And then of course there's a regulatory push towards pushing being more card centric. That's my thought on this. And I think this will be a natural progression with time as people pick up cards and stuff like that.
If I could just sort of add to this as well. I completely agree with both Imtiaz and Nida on this. So it is a matter of both sort of the overall customer experience and whether they sort of have that element of trust with the e-commerce company or the app they're using, and as a function of how often they use it. Another key part though is, so I remember numbers we used to sort of see in Yevo quite often is, whenever customers sort of do their first purchase, unless we're sort of doing a sale event where the discounts are only on prepayment methods, customers tend to prefer their first purchase to be on COD. But if you keep giving them a good experience, i.e. no refunds, no returns, delivery within a couple of days at max, then by the fifth order, we noticed that about 60 to 70% of customers converted to prepayment because you build that level of trust. Early last year, we ran the e-commerce awards as well. And, we ran a survey, which I think about 17,000 people responded to this survey, where they sort of confirmed exactly the same thing. About 65-70% of people said that if they had a couple of good experiences, they would be willing to use their card to make payments. So it's all about sort of giving that sort of option, because in Pakistan, people do feel that cash is easier. And while I sort of disagree, I prefer to only buy on card, because then I can sort of, if something goes wrong, I can complain to the bank as well and get my money back. Whereas with cash on delivery, it's a little bit harder if it gets delivered and you want to return it. But I understand the reasoning. People think they're not going to pay until they sort of get the product.
Yeah, right. That absolutely makes sense. So Nida, other than prepayment or cash on delivery, what are the other things you have seen people are, making their buying decision based on?
See, in today's time when there's a high rate of inflation and the recession rate is pretty high, what is most important is the price point. Um, so a lot of decisions people are taking for about buying online are price driven, and the fact that anything that's available in a good price point, people are looking for bargains. So if you look at the trend that has been embedded in all the retail brands now is that they do tend to mention starting price in every category that they've been putting out. So for example, we're launching festive collection, we're launching winter collection, or whatever, there will be starting price mentioned on every other brand category that you would look. That will show that this is the price range that you'd be expecting. And then of course there are promotions and discounts going on almost every month or every 2 months. That will obviously have that will create a pull for the customer to come onto the store. उसके अलावा सबसे actually important है, and I cannot emphasize enough on this, is the fact that when you go to a website, it has to look and feel like it's something legit. It's not fake. It's not something that looks bad. It's not something that has broken links. It's not something that makes the customer experience go bad. So for me, it's very important to have the right color scheme as well. I mean, that's very important. I'm extremely anxious about the fact that color scheme क्या होगा आपका, आपका UI UX कैसा होगा, checkout journey customer की कैसे होगी, कितने links आपके page पे खुल रहे हैं. This is something very important because that makes or breaks the customer experience. And even for smaller brands, let's not talk about retail brands, let's not talk about marketplaces, let's talk about smaller brands, niche designer brands. उनको भी अगर आप देखें तो क्या important होता है कि अगर आप किसी वेबसाइट के पेज पे जाती हैं और आप अभी किसी के फेसबुक पेज पे जाते हो और देखती हैं, इंस्टाग्राम के पेज पे जाते हो, देखती हैं कोई वेबसाइट का लिंक नहीं है, फॉर अ मोमेंट एंड टू यू थिंक अच्छा दिस इज जस्ट फेसबुक ऑर्डर or IG based order, is this brand even legit, is this not fake? So website gives you the factor of trust and reliability that this is a legit brand that actually exists, and it does phenomenally well for even small scale brand because Shopify हो गया, WooCommerce हो गया, it's cheaper, it's plug and play, you can develop your store and you can get around it. उसके अलावा सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट ये होता है, हम क्योंकि पेमेंट गेटवेज की बात करें कि आपके पास करेक्ट पेमेंट गेटवे हो. सबसे ज्यादा जो स्ट्रगल मैं कर रही हूँ and something I've been complaining about since probably 2 years is the fact that there are a lot of Shopify based websites, but all the payment gateways that are coming in are not representing Shopify's order ID. They're showing the reference ID, and if you have a higher volume of orders, it becomes a nightmare during the reconciliation. So that is what my pain point is. That's a separate conversation. But what else is important is the fact that price points आपके सही हो, reliability हो customers की, आपके पास payment के options हो, आप IDFC दे रहे हो, आप COD दे रहे हो, आप card payment दे रहे हो, and what bank offers and bargains are available with you for you to integrate. So I think these are the few factors which are top of my mind, which are actually important for the customer to drive onto your website. And most importantly, once the customer has made the purchase from your website, how's your after sales service? Is your customer service up to the point? Are you refunding timely? Are you enabling returns that they're it's easier for the customer to to make the return? These are few factors that drive any customer towards your brand, or they can drive them from your brand. So these are just two things on top of my mind.
All right, thank you so much for sharing.
Can I just jump in and ask a question? So Nida and Adam, both for you. You guys talked about, I mean, Nida went into great depth about the websites and the experience. I think this is a slightly double-edged sword, isn't it? I think a lot of companies, small and large, all have websites, and they all have, I mean, there's this decent number of them out there with websites. And even there's a lot of transactions happening via Facebook pages as well. But what makes a website looks professional? That's also a question, right? And what defines professional? Because what may be professional for me, or what may be aesthetically pleasing for me, may not be for someone else. How correlated is this, and in your opinion, to even the AOV or the markets we're catering to? Because every organization, every market, every segment is different. And I've, from personal experience, I've even seen Shopify stores that have not made the effort of writing a description, but somehow they, and when I speak to their owners, and the number of sales that they're talking about is insane. And here we are, we're talking about write good descriptions, have great pictures. This is what the rules we live by. But there's a whole different market out there that's massive, but they don't do any of these, and they're still making huge numbers. And when you go and talk to them about other improvements, they're like, "Paise aa rahe na, kya masla hai?" You know, this is literally the conversation I've heard from people. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I'll go on this. So basically, you're right. A lot of websites who don't focus on their UI UX, don't focus on their content at all, but then yet they're selling. So it has to be their price point, and it has to be maybe the the way they're handling their operation. Maybe you order from them today and they have it delivered to you at your doorstep by tomorrow. So that's what maybe customer likes, or maybe they've had a bad experience from them, but because they're cheap and because the customer service is readily available and they're able to refund you, give you a voucher, or maybe help you out some other way that they're still selling. And again, then the first question you asked, how important is all of that? I think it's super important to be able to relate to your TG. For example, if I'm a brand and my TG is somebody 30, 25 to 65, I will make sure. And actually, we have done a research at Alkaram as well before we kind of made some changes on our UI UX for that. And surprising bit was when they're females, even from the age group of 20 and below 20, they were on the website. Guess what they were doing? They did not even bother touching the header or looking at the menu of it. All they did was just scroll through the homepage. So all they wanted to see was, अच्छा यहाँ stitch है, अच्छा यहाँ ready to wear है, यहाँ men है, यहाँ sale लिखा हुआ है. तो वो उनके लिए वो डब्बे हैं, उनके लिए वो banners, category banners भी नहीं है. उसको scroll कर करके they were landing into different categories and purchasing from there. Now, if you look at some other brands, let's talk about international brands, not local, because I'll be competition for them. Let's look at Zara. Let's look at H&M. Their website, their look and feel is completely different, miles apart from how an Alkaram website would be, or how I would even talk about Max Employer, their website would be, because their TG is Gen Z and millennials. So they would want funky images, they would want something, a lot of videos, a lot of video content. So it's very different. You have to resonate and relate with your audience. For example, let's say Alkaram's logo has a red tinge to it, right? Now, if I make my entire website, I have a nice peach color going on the website at the moment. Now, if I make it all red, it's going to be very startling. It's going to be very jarring, and people will be repulsed by it. Because I know कि मेरे जो creators हैं, वो बहुत ज़्यादा colorful हैं, मगर colorful इस तरह के हैं, वो darker tones में मेरे colors bright, pastel नहीं है. तो अगर मैं कोई dark color use करूँगी, it will be clashing with my creative. So I chose to go with a lighter color, which will be there. It will stand out. Yet it will be somewhere in the background and it will be inviting, it will be pleasing to the eye. So these are just few things that I think is important. And also the ease of use is very important. The more difficult you make your website, the more tech savvy you try to make it your way, that's not going to work. You have to resonate with your audience. So the simpler, the better for whichever brand I'm working for. And I think for anybody trying to make their website super funky, if it goes with your audience, why not? I would like to also add one more thing here. Bonanza's website, the Shopify Plus website was launched back in 2020, and it was supposed to be, and it actually was the first AR-based website. And why it was AR-based website? Because back then they launched a beauty and cosmetics category, and for that there was this makeup AR app that you would try makeup on your face, and then of course you would put makeup buying decisions from there. And it was close to COVID, so don't tell the testers, put it on yourself while using the app, and then you'll decide. Guess what it does? It actually it increased our website traffic. We also, the cosmetics category became 15% of our online total sales, 15 to 20% of what we were selling online, because we started driving millennials and Gen Zs towards the website. Because who would have thought that this brand could be somebody catering to millennials and Gen Zs? But because the price points were really good, the quality was really good, and we were offering them a convenience of trying makeup on their face, that they were able to come onto the website. So I think that is extremely important of how you build up your website and what content you put through and what content you put across.
So I think, when it comes to other elements like UI, UX and the template of the website, so I end up seeing maybe 5 to a dozen or so websites a week, at least brand new websites. And you can very easily tell the ones that are probably serious and the ones that are not. Because, templates for Shopify WooCommerce templates are so easily available. Every website can look professional in either like for no cost or $20-$30 as well. The key is whether you put in the right sort of content. And the websites, that spend a few sort of hours putting the right sort of content, making sure basic spelling mistakes are right, or, the images sort of fit the frames and everything. You can tell they're sort of professional, and that level of trust automatically comes forward. But the ones who who have test products on their homepage as well, they have basic elements like the lorem ipsum content and so on still there. You can tell, you should probably stay away. But as sort of Nida mentioned, so the bar is very low. And as long as you have a decent, I think, website, and then your pricing is the best, and you sort of delivering to the customers, and then you sort of have customers coming through referrals, you can do very well. So the bar is not very high, I would say. But the basics, I think, are still necessary. And then everything you add on top sort of helps improve your conversion rate on top of that.
Just adding a little bit there, maybe Imtiaz would be in a better position to answer. Right now, we see a lot of these big brands, big names in the market moving from standard Shopify to Shopify Plus. What I understand that Shopify Plus has a lot more in terms of benefits and the overall customization possible. What are the key reasons that the brands are using Shopify Plus and planning to move from one platform to another? What are the drivers of change over here?
So I don't see Shopify and Shopify Plus as two different platforms. I see them as just as an upgrade. We just did an upgrade for one of the customers that I work with, and they just shifted. It was literally, there was no shift. It was just a change in the account type, right? But the reason the shift happens is because of the fact that standard Shopify, you kind of grow out of this at a certain scale. Your demands for capabilities, your demands for customization, your demands for adding in and connecting custom tools, your demands for reporting will outgrow what Shopify offers to you. And in all honesty, if you ask me as a person who works on the analytics side, even Shopify default has very limited and quite broken in terms of reporting. So let me give you a very quick example. We typically do a Google Analytics implementation, whereas Google Analytics has shifted to GA4. Well, not shifted to entirely, but it's parallel right now. Effective July 1, 2023, GA3 or Universal Analytics as we know it will stop functioning. Shopify doesn't support GA4 as of yet, right? Even if you put in the standard GA3 tracking code, you would still see, even standard Shopify, even the category level reporting is quite broken on it. So, the capabilities are significantly reduced. And Adam Ghaznavi asks a very interesting question. Are they pushing their own analytics? To some extent, but I don't think their own analytics, the reporting is slightly broader with Shopify Plus, slightly, not significantly. But the fact that you can then implement a GA4 or GTM tag across the board and control the Shopify checkout experience, which means that you can tag that experience as well, to some extent gives you a greater degree of control. And I think that's what people are looking for, because the ability to go headless, because you also have to remember, while Shopify is great on templates, you have to still play within Shopify's rules of liquid. And if you're still within that space, then there's a lot of limitations in terms of what you can do. And let me give you an example. Nida moved to Shopify Plus and then launched the AR-based app, right? Nida, was it possible for you to do that within the standard Shopify framework?
Okay, to be honest, it could have been done because it was an app, right? But why Shopify Plus for me was because of my the fact that I had higher number of SKUs and I was looking for customization of some certain degree.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get it through just basic Shopify. So I had to go for Shopify Plus, and also the fact that MDR rate, there are any business transaction charges on Shopify Plus. The volume I was dealing with, I had to opt for Shopify Plus and not the basic plan because it had the limitations, of course. It
Yeah,
came
and
in
you outgrow it essentially, because with your demands,
of course.
with your level of sophistication that you as a brand exhibit, and your demands from being a bigger business, because as you grow, your demands for customization keep changing and increasing. So there's that. But the other thing to look out at is also another product that's coming into play, fabric, and that will be a very interesting product to look at. I've been following it closely. I don't think there's any player in Pakistan that's doing fabric at this point in time, and even they're not commercial right now. But fabric seems to be a very interesting modular approach to e-commerce and headless, and that would be another thing to watch. I think something to look at over the next 2 years. I don't see them coming around the next year or so at least. But I think, Mevish, to answer your question, the transition happens because people grow out. As your needs increase, and your needs increase based on what you have and where you've come. So you eventually transition, and this is what leads for it. And then let's bear in mind, Shopify Plus starts at $2,000+ a month, and so therefore you must have the appetite to absorb that. If you're already paying your tech team 5 lakh rupees per month, which if you're a larger player, you easily are, right? Then it just makes sense to move to Shopify, because a lot of the stuff is taken care of over there. But then you have to then make use of that 2,000 rupee dollars a month cost.
Yeah, Adam, Nida have just shared a very important point, a concern actually, which we have observed in group discussion, PECC के group discussion पे भी a lot of people, constantly asking कि what are the payment gateways जो कि Shopify को support करते हैं. If they are supporting Shopify, there are some kind of challenges जहाँ पर आके उनको कोई hurdles आते हैं. So you being a founder of bSecure, how bSecure is addressing this issue?
So Shopify is I like to describe it as the iOS of the e-commerce platform worlds. Apple likes to keep sort of very strong walled gardens. Shopify is exactly the same. So I was even on the Shopify payments page just yesterday, look on the Pakistan site, looking at how many payment gateways they have, and they don't have any local payment gateways listed, just the international ones. So it is very, very difficult to even get onboarded on as a Shopify payment gateway. I mean, this is a major issue that we face. It took us almost 6-7 months to sort of get onboarded as well. And we're still technically part of their beta sort of phase. That's why we're not even on their main list. And a lot of other gateways are not, or this is why a lot of the major gateways end up sort of partnering with third parties, providers and then sort of coming into who've had Shopify Pro accounts for a couple of years. So it is very difficult. And I think one of the critical things that Nida also mentioned earlier is reconciling order numbers. And so, it's something that's so simple on every sort of other platform between your payment gateway and your sort of backend operating system, the order table. It makes it very, very difficult. But Shopify ends up sort of giving a better overall customer experience as well. And, they are also pushing their own sort of payment side more with Shopify payments. While their focus obviously is in Pakistan, it is a major offering that they're pushing in the rest of the globe as well.
So Adam Ghaznami is asking differences with Shopify and Shopify Plus. I think Imtiaz and Nida have already addressed this question. If something else you want to ask Adam, अगर आपका इसमें कुछ चीज clear नहीं हुई, you can come again. Kanza is asking, do you think product differentiation is dead and it's marketing? And it's just marketing, what makes the difference? Nida or Imtiaz, I think you guys can take this question up.
Nida, from a product perspective, please go ahead, and then I'll share my thoughts from a marketing angle.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. If you could just please repeat it.
Sure. So she's asking, do you think product differentiation is dead and it's just the marketing what makes the difference?
Okay, to be very honest, I'm talking from a pure retail perspective. You could still figure out which brand you're wearing because of the design. There's certain patterns that everyone knows, a certain way or certain something is stitched at. I'm not gonna take any names because of course I'm from a certain brand, but you can always figure out that you're wearing a certain brand, and you could be wrong. Then you ask, oh, Mevish, are you wearing this? And she'll be like, no, I'm not wearing this, I'm wearing that. And it's like, wow, that's really changed. This is the sort of conversation I'm assuming every female has one day or the other, like, in their daily routine. So differentiation in terms of designs and everything, yes, it has, because there's so much competition out there, and there are trends that we now follow. For example, there's cord sets, everyone's wearing those, right? There's solids, everyone's wearing those. But how do you differentiate in terms of stitching? Because everyone's doing the stitching the same way as well. So I think in today's day and age, it's primarily and essentially more about how you market your product rather than just what you're also just offering. Because if you don't market it just right, then there's so much out there that you would be lost somewhere in the clutter. So I think advertising it the correct way is the most important thing. Because like Imtiaz was mentioning, there are websites or there are companies or there are brands who don't really care about how they're looking and how what is the UI UX, how they're paid to the customer, yet they're selling. So it's price point and how do you advertise is what actually matters the most in today's age. Sadly, that is true.
So I think I do not think that product is dead, and for the very same reason that Nida has also put out there. It does definitely boil down to marketing. It more than marketing, I think a very specific component of marketing, which is called product positioning, right? So how do you position your product? You can be selling solids, so Bunto does solids, right? You could be wearing solids, and Ego also does solids. And there's a whole different, between the two, there's a whole different positioning of how they've shown, even demonstrated the solids, right? So that is something to look at. And then it's also about the kind of resonance you create with your customer audience, with your customers in general. They have to aspire to wear your product or consume your product if you're any other, not a fashion brand. And then they also have to relate to it. The reason that relationship is important is because that's the only thing that will give you and retain customers for you. If you do not resonate with the brand, why would you buy from it? The funny part is that the same product may be sold by two companies and you buy it from a certain brand because you relate to that brand. And that is it. The same product, and let me give you a very interesting example. A lot of the consumer appliances we buy today, refrigerators, air conditioners, washing machines, toasters, microwave ovens, all of them are pretty much made in the same factory or 2-3 factories. 80% of the microwave ovens in the US market are made by one company. There's a brand called Midea, M-I-D-E-A. Some of you may have seen it. Pakistan, they launched ACs a while ago, but they stopped selling them. But 80% of all the microwave ovens in the US are made by Midea. And the same product is available via Westinghouse and then Philips and then Whirlpool and all other brands. So it's about positioning, how they have decided to sell the same product to their consumers. Microwave oven to microwave oven hota hai na yaar, right? So how different can it be? It has one function. How different can it be? But there it is, right? You have a relationship with the brand. You have a relationship with the experience that the brand gives you, with how it treats you as well. It's a two-way street, right? You cannot just go and buy a product and expect just the product. It's always the experience, the sales experience, where you're buying it from, the service experience, the warranty management experience. All of these things will matter. And it's something that's starkly different from country to country, to a great extent that the same product in Pakistan will have a different experience compared to just, I'm in Karachi, someone in Islamabad, which is an hour and a half away. For me, Dubai is the same distance away, right? But the distance and experience is substantially different. And this is, I think it's more of a customer psychology thing. And it's about attacking the customer from the right angle to acquire those transactions. But first you need to create the brand image and then work on the transactions. And you cannot create a brand image in isolation without an understanding of your customer. That is where you will hit a wall and, or you'll be just playing in the dark and not knowing where you're going.
Thank you, Imtiaz. Yeah. I think building on the experience bit that you just highlighted, I think the core reason why Adam even thought about building a product like bSecure was the fact that the customer experience needed to be fixed on different websites. even during his time at Jevo and Kemu, I think that was the checkout was drastically ignored. People would work on creating great websites and putting in all sorts of products. But I feel that the checkout was initially ignored, which I think we did work a lot on the checkout fields, and how bSecure is different from any other gateway is the fact that the experience that we offer. It's similar to what you see at Foodpanda. Your data is saved, it is secure, and the Foodpanda experience, like you were talking about, ke sara data save hota hai aur ek click hota hai and your transaction is complete, right? That is similar experience that bSecure is going to offer you, which is why it is doing so well when it comes to conversions. Another thing that Nida, you highlighted during your conversation was the fact that you needed to, you were facing issues with the reconciliations of transactions on Shopify. तो वो छोटे छोटे जो आपके issues होते हैं, जो आपके operations को disturb करते हैं और automation से handle हो सकते हैं. That is also something that we've also worked on in bSecure, and all that reconciliation is also very, very simply possible because वो order properly map हो रहा होता है across the platform. And I think that brings us to the closure of the session, because I think our time is almost up. If you guys, Anam, if you want to close the session, Adam, would you want to add a few bits to it? If you have any more questions, would love to handle it.
Yeah, also,
otherwise we can beg leave.
our audience on Zoom and Facebook, if you have any questions, please drop down in the comment box or chat box. Meanwhile, I'll ask Adam, because he have shared some, insightful numbers, and he being someone who has been building e-commerce platforms, what are your, suggestions, and what trends would you suggest for other merchants to go for? Because currently we have two sentiments in the market, being e-commerce store owners or marketplace owners. People are either shutting it off because they are, trying to go for earning in dollars. So वो उस side पर, different चीजें देख रहे हैं. On the other hand, people are going towards the e-commerce side because they are hoping that it's going to be a $6-7 billion industry in next few months. So in either case, what trends you think we need to opt to survive in these recession times?
I think the most important element to look at is, find your North Star. Find basically what do you think customers want? What every sort of entrepreneur or startup founder learns is about product market fit and things like that. Now, find customers for your products, get as much feedback as possible, and honestly, don't worry too much about the trends. Trends can change, and if you sort of build out the right sort of product as well, you can change the overall trends as well. Just a year ago, quick commerce was such a major trend, and it slowly started to sort of fade away. Okay, so those elements come, just try and focus on building a good
Imtiaz, can you say something about this question?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what Adam was saying, and I think I was thinking silently the same thing, is that you cannot, I mean, you have to think about customers. Customers will be everything for you. If your strategy is not starting from the customer, then you are looking the wrong way. And very interestingly, in 2000 and the early 2000s, actually, mid 2000s actually, there were a couple of studies by the major advertising giants, and their focus was, the focus of those studies was essentially stemming around customer focus and customer attention being the currency that everyone fights for. And that has come true in this day and age with the proliferation of social media. You have Twitter, you have Instagram, you have a bunch of other things, and you have smartphones. And this was a study done back in the early 2000s. Now, why this was important is because trends will come and go, as Adam puts it. Ideas will come and go. What will remain is platforms, and what will remain is execution, and what will remain is needs, right? You cannot eliminate needs from the market. Some needs may be temporarily, like, fidget spinners, they came and they went. And then there will be 20,000 other things which will come and go. But what fundamentally will exist is people will always want to eat. People will always want to, want accessories. They will want clothing. They will want consumer appliances in a certain point of time in their life, and they will have a repurchase cycle as well. They will want value additions, automotive parts, computer parts, laptops, all that stuff. So these are needs that will be cyclical for all times to come. And everything, so there will be lifestyle products and there will be essentials, right? Everything we consume today is between the two, and of course food, right? So as Adam puts it, trends will come and go. Trends will not change or define your shopping experience. What will define your shopping experience will be the experience itself and the number of steps to complete your transactions. And if I may demonstrate demonstrate would be a poor word, a conversation we were having today about a certain app is how many clicks or how many taps does it take for you to perform this action in a certain app? That is an actual study. We do that as we build apps for people, right? Well, we can do this in 5 steps. Why do we want to do this in 7, right? So these are conversations. How many screens does your checkout take? It's very interesting how when Shopify came about, Shopify had an uphill climb because they had the 3-stage checkout. They still have the 3-stage checkout. But at a certain point of time, because Shopify became so pervasive, and who was it fighting against? Either Magento, which was huge and difficult to maintain, or WooCommerce, which had pretty much no maintenance, right? So Shopify is a great go-between, and a lot of people hated Shopify. I've been one of them. I still have a love-hate relationship with Shopify. But the point is, the fact that everyone saw the same checkout experience across the board meant that for any company to come and set up a Shopify store, the 3-stage checkout is not a barrier anymore, right? Because they're familiar with it. They know that the email address is on top. They know these fields at these locations. They know the values that need to come in. And yes, they can close their eyes and blindly do it. And this is what creates the experience. I mean, as much as I hate it, the 3-page checkout is a simpler experience. Yes, we would love to have it within 1. We would love to have it with a single click. But creating something new will make people need to unlearn what they've learned with Shopify. And because there's like 80% Shopify penetration out there, it's a bit difficult to do. So that's my thought on experiences. Yeah, Adam's back.
No, sorry, I kept getting locked off of one into the other. I think we don't focus too much on trends. As long as you're sort of focusing on your core business, bringing in customers, and your customers are repeat customers, everything else, as long as you're sort of growing, will work out. You might not end up being a unicorn, but you can build out a very good lifestyle business out of this anyway.
That's very much important. Another thing which is coming during the session as well, वैसे भी around the e-commerce ecosystem जो हम बात करते हैं, so all the buzz is about Amazon, only about Amazon. People are not very much talking about the local e-commerce and the strength we have in the local e-commerce as well. Abhi questions maybe somebody asked if any of you can guide about fulfillment by Amazon FBA. So why not we guide them about the strengths and opportunities we have in the local e-commerce system? What you guys say about it?
So one thing I'll sort of clarify about e-commerce. So Amazon obviously is this huge behemoth that sort of grew out, but most people, while their sort of customer journeys, their one-click checkouts are sort of phenomenal innovations and everything, the main reason Amazon grew so well is because they had the lowest price. And they had the lowest prices not because of their sort of ability to negotiate with vendors and merchants and things like that. Because in America, you have different state taxes. And if you're shipping something from one state to another state, those state taxes do not apply. So Amazon ended up being cheaper than buying in your own sort of state or from your nearest sort of store. So pricing was actually the main reason Amazon grew so much and sort of made such a big name for itself. This is unfortunately something that's not possible in Pakistan. And one of the, that pricing conversation is key. However, out of that, they basically built out a lot of other key services and features and everything as well.
So I think just to add on to what you said, Adam, I think the question stems around fulfilled by Amazon, right? The moment you talk about fulfilled by Amazon, you are technically talking about becoming an exporter. So, and that's a whole different market. Sure, you can do that. I mean, but at the end of the day, you have to then still create your brand. You have to invest in equity in a product, and it's a decision that you need to make. You can't really do that with 200 pieces of something. Today, you can set up a Shopify store with 500 shirts and just start selling, right? But if you start trying to do that with FBA, just your cost of production will shoot up too high unless you're sourcing from China, which will also be more expensive because there are people buying 20,000 shirts at the same time. So just to give you a poor example, but this is how it is. So it is an uphill challenge. But here's the interesting conversation, right? And we talked about this in general. I think someone in the comments, Mevish, was also bringing up, is the other place where experiences tend to be broken is also startups, right? So there's a zillion startups out there, and everyone has a different payment mechanism. And that's also very interesting, right? Because they all acquire customers the same way, but yet everyone has a different payment mechanism. Some have figured out the cards, some have not figured out the cards, some are still figuring out how they're going to do COD with some partner. Some are going to want to push banks through payments. So it's just very interesting how many startups are able to succeed in this space. And Adam, just a question for you. You've been analyzing startups. I remember back in the day, you've written a bunch of startup ecosystem reports, right? What are your thoughts on startups and what are the key components? We talked about e-commerce in general, but what are your thoughts on how the startup ecosystem, and what are the key things the startup ecosystem needs to remember in order to launch a half decent startup? But let's talk about unicorns and bigger ones, maybe at some other platform. But just in order to be stable and up and running, I mean, that's a fundamental component of launching a business, right?
So the biggest, I'll sort of tell you about the lesson I've learned building in Pakistan. Nothing happens quickly. So one of the things one of my friends said a couple of years ago to me as well, what industry, what startup in Pakistan could you not build today? You're never too late to build something in Pakistan. No real industry is completely sort of saturated or captured. Again, I'm not going to the Googles or the Facebooks, but even look at, like, my assumption was about a year ago, Careem and Uber was sort of pretty much set now. There wasn't really going to be a competitor. But look at InDriver, they've come in and they've taken sort of a big chunk out of that. So if you're sort of operating primarily in Pakistan, you have to sort of plan for the long term. It's very, very difficult and very foolhardy if you think you're going to start growing very quickly, very soon, and, start scaling up massively. So, always be careful with the overall burn rate that you have. Look at how much money you're spending at all times and try and build a good business. So make sure you have a good business model out of it. If you then end up raising funds and doing well, great. But always focus on the core business and the bottom line. You can't sort of do it too quickly in Pakistan. It's might end in failure. There's a greater chance of it ending in failure. It's different in the US, Europe, and other markets, but in Pakistan, you have to be much more careful.
So for now, I think there are so many key takeaways which new startups and aspiring e-commerce entrepreneurs can take from this conversation. Like, we don't only need to focus on marketing, but we have to focus on the UI UX as well. We have to focus on the pre and post customer services. And now Adam have shared his part that it's not a fast market. You have to be patient enough. It's not about e-commerce, I think, only. If you are jumping into the entrepreneurship and creating a startup in Pakistan, you need to be patient enough. Any other thing, Imtiaz, Nida, Adam, you have to share with the e-commerce entrepreneurs to, stay in the market instead of, shutting their businesses off, because we have seen a lot of, businesses in e-commerce industry जो कि अब continue नहीं कर रहे due to any reason. तो उनके failures के जो भी reasons हो, you might have some idea. तो उन रीजंस को आगे जो दूसरे ई कॉमर्स बिजनेसेस हैं उनको वो कैसे एड्रेस करके उसको मिनिमाइज करके अपने ई कॉमर्स को एटलीस्ट थ्राइविंग कर सकते हैं, एटलीस्ट यूनिकॉर्न नहीं तो अपने ही ई कॉमर्स को सर्वाइवल मोड में लेकर चल सके.
Can I take this first?
Sure.
So I think fundamentally, as Adam puts it, right, create a business model. A lot of the startups in Pakistan do not have a defined business model. It's fair that they say a startup never has a defined business model and they'll figure out how they'll make money in the end, right? But they must have a problem that they're trying to solve. Don't create a problem that doesn't exist, right? And this is very interesting, right? So if we look at the quick commerce space and how it boomed and busted, right, simultaneously. CraveMart's still there. They're doing some numbers. I'm not privy to what numbers they're doing. I'm sure they're around, so they must be doing something. But if you notice, even they've kind of shifted their positioning from 10-minute delivery to 30-minute delivery, right? And there's a reason for that, because इसमें से बहुत सारी चीजें the crave I mean, I'm not going to talk about CraveMart because I'm not privy to what they were thinking, but the airlift and the airlift started doing this, and Panda Mart still decent, but the deliveries are still delayed. And I think a lot of this is actually just replacement of what you need on a typical day while coming home. के store से look के bread लेते आना है, right? Yeah, I'm too lazy. I'm spending time with the kids or watching a movie. चलो खाना मंगवा, ice cream मंगवा लेते हैं. Stuff that isn't on Food Panda. But typically not so much, because you have dedicated pharmacies online right now as well. You have your Tabiat.pk, you have Dawai.pk. All these guys are there. You can still buy stuff from there, and it's still working. Yeah, so that's my kind of thought here. Okay, there's a lot that's happening there could have been a lot happening, but the general consensus out there is that quick commerce was trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. But that said, I think even if the problem did exist, you have to be judicious with your business. There have been companies who have, just because they raised a ton of money, they decided to set up a huge office and spend a ton of money acquiring people at ungodly, ridiculous salaries. जिसको देख के, आज हम कहते हैं, I would not pay that much for this resource. And when we interview those people, we're like, what, you were paid that much? It's surprising how people have paid a lot. Companies have been careless with investor money. And that's unfair to the investor, because investor to ये सोच रहे हैं कि $1 में दे रहा हूँ, rupees में pay करने कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा. But फर्क पड़ रहा है, because at the end of the day, you're accountable for that money. So it's important for businesses to A, be financially responsible, B, have a business model in place. If you don't have a business model in place or don't know how to make money, sure, it's understandable to figure out how much money you want to make, but at least have 3 avenues to try to make money, right? And then figure out why people have failed. There's a lot of startups out here. We meet them, we're like, someone tried this 4 years ago. What makes you think you're successful? They'll be like, oh, we didn't know this. And this is very surprising, because that just shows that there's a definite lack of research, right? So I think these 3 areas are fundamental. Be judicious, be careful with how you want to spend money, and have an actual business model instead of trying to figure out, oh, I'm going to do this. Don't try to solve a problem that's in the air. Solve an actual problem and then create the demand. People don't focus on creating demand. That's not a problem.
That's really grateful, great insightful answer of yours, Imtiaz. Adam and Nida, can you please share your part?
Okay, so honestly, I would just circle back to what Imtiaz's journey talked about, that how investor money has been carelessly used, and how there's been extravagant salaries and compensations and extravagant offices and stuff, and it didn't really translate into actual profit, and it actually didn't really translate into the bottom line. So I think more focus has always been on the top line, on the GMV only, and not really the bottom line, which is that actual profit. So my tip would just be to whoever is actually running an e-commerce store right now, is to actually be mindful of their bottom line as well, and not just GMV, because that's great to have the traffic, and it's great to be spending and having increased spends and whatnot. But it's also important to resonate and actually tap onto the right audience, which will translate and convert into something. It will actually translate into some sort of conversion and not just bring on traffic to your site, because that is actually at one point becomes useless, because if you have traffic and it's not translating, then what's the point? So I think, yeah, we have to be meticulous with how we're spending, what we're doing. We have to stay within the spend definition. We have to really look at the bottom line if we're actually profitable or not. So yeah, that's it from my side.
Thank you so much. Adam, can I change this question for you? Because Nida and Imtiaz both have discussed about the investor part. So do we really need investor? Yeah, investor hona is a must thing to run the e-commerce business?
So if you look at investors now, investors, their goal, they have a defined amount of capital that they want to deploy in a certain number of companies. So anywhere between 15 to 25. They then need a couple of those businesses to do really, really well, make outsized returns, and basically return a profit to their investors. So does e-commerce companies need investors? It depends on the kind of business you're making. So because what you have to remember is when you bring an investor in now, you're ensuring that you have to give a massive amount of growth, because the VC investors that generally people look at now, they only want a minimum 20% IRR per year. They need that to basically showcase that they've made money themselves. So if you are focused on growth, in VC money is for growth capital. So if you need growth capital, do it. But you first need a solid sort of business plan, or again, unless you're sort of going after some trend, you need to make sure you have a solid business plan and you're solving a problem. Because if you're solving a problem and you're growing organically, or through the marketing and everything that you're doing, then investors will follow through to you anyway if they feel you have the growth potential. So it's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I think we need to close this session for now because it's already 5:10 and we don't want to keep our audience engaged for too long. Before I formally end the session, I would request Mahvish to please drop down bSecure handles or something, because people are asking if they want to, connect with bSecure, how they can reach out to you guys. If you can drop an email address or website or contact number on both the chat and comment section. Thank you so much, everyone who have joined us through Zoom and through Facebook Live. We hope that you have learned something great through this session, and Mahvish have dropped all the contact details so you can connect with bSecure. Until next time, thank you, everyone. Thank you, our speakers, to share, amazing insights, your experience. Hope to see you in any other session as well. Thank you. Take care. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you. Thanks, bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Imtiaz.
Thank you, Allah Hafiz.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Allah Hafiz.
Okay, so live stream is end.
Thank you so much. I think
we can finish the recording as well. It's still recording.
Yeah.